Alrighty, Chair, we are live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Robin Rains, and I would like to welcome you to the June 15th Design Review Committee meeting. This is an 8-person committee whose primary function is to perform design review and review for the projects located in one of the city's 3 designated design review areas: downtown, the riverfront, and the new hotel overlay zoning district. This is a mandatory review, voluntary compliance process with one exception for hotels seeking to skip council review. Hotels taking advantage of this incentive must receive a positive recommendation from the committee. All committee members and staff are participating virtually. We appreciate your patience. We are streaming live on our virtual engagement hub, which is accessible through the virtual engagement hub link on the front page of the city website and also linked on the committee page. You can also watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel. We also have an option for the public to listen live by calling 855-925-2801 and entering code 9410 when we get to the public comment section. You may dial this same number and press *3. For those of you with us today, welcome. I will now go through and introduce all the committee members who are participating virtually. Please make sure to mute your microphone if you're not speaking. And when you have a question or would like to speak, unmute your microphone. Please remember to mute your phone after you are done speaking. Committee members, as I call your name, please say a quick hello. Catherine Ankaya.
Hello.
Christina Boer.
Hi.
Kimberly Hunter.
Present.
Stephen Lee Johnson.
Hi.
Brian Moffitt.
Hello.
Ricardo Sejo.
Hello.
And Jeremy Goldstein, the vice chair, is not here today. To help our audience follow along, I will state each section of the agenda aloud and do a vocal call for each vote, if there's a vote to be taken. Additionally, I ask that committee members raise their hand to speak, and I will call upon them. We will begin with the administrative items and unfinished business. And all we have for administrative is the approval of the minutes from the May 19th, 2022 meeting. Did everybody get a chance to look at those?
I make a motion to accept the minutes as written.
Okay. Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. I will do a roll call vote for that. Kate.
Aye.
Christina.
Aye.
Kimberly.
Aye.
Stephen Lee.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Carter.
Aye.
And I am an aye. Okay, the minutes are approved. Next, we'll move on to new business. And we have one item on our agenda for a formal design review today, and that is the 72 Broadway Street Create 72 Broadway project.
Alrighty. Good afternoon, committee members. Will Palmquist with Planning and Urban Design. I'll be giving a brief presentation about the project and the conformity with the downtown design guidelines. We also have the project applicants with us today, and I think they'd probably like to give a brief presentation too. And then you can ask them, and you can ask me any other questions you may have. Let's see. Alrighty. So this project, known as Create 72 Broadway, located at 72 Broadway Street, downtown. The existing property is about 1/4 acre, used for surface parking, and located south of the Asheville Masonic Temple and its parking lot. And then it's north of existing 2-story, mostly commercial buildings to the south. The project consists of a 9-story tall mixed-use building with 22 hotel rooms, 18 condominium units, and about 2,000 square feet on the ground floor. There's also 43 structured parking spaces proposed, 1 story below ground and then 2 stories parking above ground. The project is seeking level 2 review and as it is located in a hotel overlay district downtown, it's seeking to bypass city council review by seeking a favorable approval from this committee. And it would also then go for a ministerial review at Planning and Zoning Commission, just to confirm that it meets the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance. This chair.
I forgot to bring up that Kate wants to recuse herself. Should we do this before we get into the project?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Sorry, I forgot as well.
Okay. Catherine Ankaya has some relationship to this project, so she's going to recuse herself. So we're going to do a roll call vote. And we'll start with Kate,
Aye.
Christina,
Aye.
Kimberly,
Aye.
Stephen Lee,
Aye.
Brian,
Off the island.
and Ricardo.
Sure.
And I vote aye. So Kate, you are recused, but feel free to stay and enjoy the presentation.
Thank you, Chair. Let's see some other details. Let me go to the elevation drawings. So vehicular access to the project and the parking will be off of Broadway. Service access is proposed to be off of the private alley behind the site between Broadway and Market Street. As far as other improvements, the project is proposing a new 10-foot wide sidewalk as required, as well as street trees on the Broadway Street elevation, some brick banding and a brick kind of plaza area in front of the main recessed entrance to the building, and then some areas reserved for some sculpture or other art as well. So overall, the project complies with the design and operational standards for the Central Business District zoning district in the UDO regarding siting and height, massing, other development standards such as the requirement of the building occupy 80% of the frontage, compliant in regards to the fenestration and opening requirements, and also that the main pedestrian entrance is off of the main primary street. As far as proposed materials go, the applicant's proposing a stucco finished insulated wall system finished in a brick pattern and a medium iron spot color, using light gray wire cut brick banding as an accent, as well as limestone colored stucco, and a metal wall panel in either like a warm silver or pewter color. Other materials such as corbelled masonry, brick, aluminum storefront openings, and aluminum clad windows are proposed as well. We did receive some updated elevations and 3D renderings from the applicant. They wanted to kind of clarify the proposed color palette of the materials. So those are now posted to the project folder on the DRC website. The overall design, layout, and everything else of the project did not change at all. But I will note that on the non-primary elevations, some columns and kind of roof structures are now proposed on these inset balconies. So this is the north elevation, kind of looking from the existing parking lot more or less. The rear of the building, these are corner balconies in the center of the rear. You can see better on the 3D renderings. And this kind of read more as like an open patio design. Now is a 2-story balcony layout. And then also the balconies from the south elevation now have these columns and a roof over top. So let me kind of walk through some of the design a little bit more. So you can see here the the kind of lower building cap, the 4 stories, which is the street wall height as required in the CBD. The 2 stories, here kind of correspond to the existing commercial structures to the south, and then the 4-story building cap corresponds to the height of the Masonic Temple to the north. The building steps back in required to at least 2/3 of the frontage above the 4-story height, as shown here with the central element going the full 9 stories. You can see this is the brick kind of proposed material and accented with the other lighter gray color here as well. Stepping around, you can see the different materials a little bit more. So the balconies, as I pointed out, the north elevation, the rear elevation. So you kind of see parts of this from Market Street as well. And then the south elevation, which would be adjacent to the existing commercial structures. Here's some better renderings, and you can see some of the balconies here. So this is the southwest perspective. This is the southeast view of the building. This is kind of the larger balcony element that was kind of read as more of an open patio before, and now is like a 2-story balcony kind of structure. And then similarly, these corner balconies now have columns through them on the corner, and then a roof on top. Perspective from the northwest, similar 2-story balcony elements here, more or less, and the columns spaced in between. And then the view from the northeast as well. Let's see, the applicant also provided a number of context renderings as requested at a previous review of the project. Here you can see the proposed kind of L-shaped layout of the building on the existing parcel here. Kind of a view from the north looking south at the building's relationship with the other buildings downtown as well. You can see the Masonic Temple here in the foreground, and the subject building here. And then along Broadway Street looking north, you get a better sense of how the building would interact with the streetscape of the existing buildings, such as the coffee shop located here in this green painted brick, and then the proposed building here. So you can kind of get a sense of how the kind of 2-story existing context would relate to the new building here, and then across the street as far as the materials go to be complementary. And further down as well, a lot of brick in this section of Broadway. And then looking south down Broadway, and you can see the Masonic Temple, which is more or less 4 stories in relationship to the proposed new building. And then finally looking north up Market Street, and you would see kind of the south elevation mostly from that view as well. So just to summarize some of the key takeaways that I've noted in the staff report, the staff finds that the project is largely compliant with the downtown design guidelines, including requirements about orientation and lot layout, such as a 0 front setback line, the relationship of the key pedestrian street, which is Broadway, which does not allow for loading facilities and requires occupiable ground floor uses if there is a parking entrance located off of a key pedestrian street, which is the case here. Let's see. Also requirements about main building entrances being off of the primary street and the key pedestrian street as well, encouraging the use of a recessed entrance as proposed here. project also complies with the height standards for the traditional downtown core, including the 4-story step back, and then the limit on the amount of square footage for structures above 75 feet as well. Let's see. Project also complies with the requirement for at least 70% of the ground level facade on Broadway to be composed of windows, doors, and openings, and also the minimum requirement of 20% of upper stories being composed of windows and openings as well. The project is only partially aligned or not aligned with one design element, which includes the use of authentic materials, which are encouraged, and that other simulated finished systems should not be used. So the project does propose, synthetic wall systems and metal panels, but staff does find that their overall appearance is compatible with properties and buildings nearby. However, they are not authentic materials. And then just some history on the project and the review of it. It has been reviewed 4 times already by the design review committee in an informal review capacity. Just some highlights about the most recent review and some of the comments voiced by the committee members, such as there was not a clear rationale for the use of the change in materials throughout the design, which I think has been addressed for the most part in this submission. Also concerns that the central bay of the main facade did not have a consistent material use as well, and that's been addressed as well. Also, the lack of a clear relationship between the lower portion of the building and the upper portion of the building. And I'll leave that to you all to, somewhat subjective. The downtown design guidelines suggest there should be a clear differentiation between the lower cap of the building and the upper stories, but I think finding the right balance between those elements is probably what the committee was looking for overall. And then the request that there be more street level renderings of the project, which the applicants did submit for this review. The project was also shared with the Downtown Commission at its June 10th meeting last week. And there were a number of comments and concerns voiced at that meeting as well, such as that the project should incorporate a green roof or similar low impact or green design features. But a more detailed rendering be provided to show the proposed public artwork at the northwest corner of the building to get a better sense of kind of what's proposed there. There are also some concerns about the safe ingress and egress from the parking garage onto Broadway Street, especially for vehicles that are going to be leaving the garage and turning left. And then also request that there be details provided of the brick and metal panels, such as the pattern of the overall brick, the joint pattern, the trim, and other details as well. Overall, staff supports the proposed building design of the Create 72 Broadway project and recommends approval as the project is in alignment with requirements and guidelines. I will note that the revised submission was received yesterday right around 5 o'clock, so there's not been a lot of time for the committee or the public to review some of those balcony changes and material refinements. So leave it to that discretion of the committee about whether they feel those changes are significant or require more study. But I'd be happy to answer any questions in the meantime, or if you'd like to hear from the applicant, I know they have some more information and clarification they'd probably like to share with you all as well.
Will, I don't know if this is the appropriate time. We did have a public comment that specifically asked if the project was encroaching on the alleyway. Is that something you can address? To
Yeah.
best of my knowledge, it is not.
Yeah, that's correct. I've been in conversation with with that person as well, who I believe either owns or represents property on Market Street. Um, I might put them in touch with Mr. Sugg to go over some more of the details. But yeah, the project is proposed on its current parcel outline. The private alley behind Broadway kind of dead ends at the back portion. This is the private alley here, so it kind of dead ends at the back portion of the property. So they would not be encroaching onto the access to the adjacent properties.
Thank you.
Yep.
If nobody has any questions right now, we'll let the project team present anything they feel they should highlight.
Yes, Robin, thank you and the design committee for your time. The couple of clarifications I'd like to make that regarding the materials. I just want to make sure everyone understands that the stucco part of the building is the only part that will be a stucco type finish. The two brick elements, those are going to be real brick, whether they're a thin brick with a rain screen or an actual full depth brick. There will be real brick masonry. So I just want to make sure that that's clarified. And then the other question about the columns, yes, I realize that's a last minute item, but it's more of it's a structural issue. It would need to be in the project anyway in order to support the balconies, and I just felt it was important to put those in there as a placeholder. And I think from our standpoint, they're in compliance with the general design guidelines, which don't really discuss columns, but they're part of the architecture of the building. And then to the question about the art piece on the northwest corner, we're showing it as right now it's a placeholder. The owner intends to commission someone to design something, an installation piece on that corner. But if you look at the 3D rendering drawings, you can see that what we're doing, to answer Brian's earlier question from the downtown commission meeting, we're just wrapping the corner with the same brick pattern that appears on the front of the building, on the side of the building. So if for some reason the sculpture piece takes a different shape or is pulled away, or we only do the pylon element, you can see that there is a consistency in the brick masonry wrapping the corner. So other than that, that's Will's presentation covered everything that we were prepared. Real brick, it's the two colors. And what I'd like to do so we can talk about materials for a minute, I'm gonna take our camera and point out the actual materials. But do you want me to answer Kim's question first?
Yeah, Kim.
No, I would like to see the materials first and then I can add. Thank you.
Okay, this is gonna be an experiment.
Could you also point out where you're going to transition from brick to thin brick?
No, so the intention is it'll either all be thin brick, and the advantage of that is that it has a better rain screen type system for venting moisture, or we'll use a more traditional brick that's 3 5/8 inches thick with a thicker drainage plane. But the appearance of the brick will be the same regardless of whether it's the thin brick or not. And at the corners, you won't see a thin edge. It'll be an L-shaped brick element that will appear to be the true thickness of a brick. So let me
Thank you.
indulge us for a minute here. We're going to try something. You see that? You see the materials? So
Yes.
the glass we're going to use. It's a clear glass that has the code required solar heat gain coefficient. That's this brick right here is going to be the dark brick that you see as the dark brick in that renderings, and that's the light brick. You see here. The silo system is most likely will be stove product, and it's designed to be, it's multi-layers. It has a rain screen to it that allows for continuous insulation, which is this blue board here. The nice thing about, I know there's a lot of controversy about stucco as a desirable material, but it's one of the few materials where a continuous insulation system can be a building envelope without any penetrations that would create thermal bridging. So from an energy efficiency standpoint, this is very, very high quality material for that in that regard. So that's what the Egress system or stucco system will be. And then the metal panel, again, we do not think that a corrugated panel is appropriate for downtown. So what we're proposing is a metal grid panel. This is from a company called Dry Design. And what this is a system that works with a rain screen and with continuous insulation. So there's a good insulating barrier to the building. This is probably a shade darker than what we're proposing to use, but this is the only sample that we could secure at this time. The color is intended to be more of a pewter silver color that'll be a little bit lighter. And then the final main material that we're proposing to use for all the windows in the storefront is this clear anodized aluminum that is found typically in downtown. So it's a fairly common material. And of course, then the glass will fit in like so, and then the brick behind it or the side. So that's our palette of materials, and these are the now we will probably be using this and this type of glass. The brick may change, maybe a little bit lighter, a little bit darker, depending on what's available at the time. But it generally be in these same two color families. Any questions about the materials?
Ricardo?
Hi, Peter. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to hear you quite well. The metal panel, is it a single skin panel, or is it like a metal composite?
No, it's a single skin. It's Dry Design is an interlocking panel that screws in through a substrate. So there'll be an insulating panel behind it, or insulation layer that, in order to meet the R16 requirement.
Kimberly, did that answer your question about the materials from before?
No, I have a different question. That's why I wanted to wait.
Okay. Stephen Lee?
I just had a couple of quick questions about the site, maybe before we moved into the architecture, if y'all don't mind. But hey, Peter, just wanted to make sure the final intention on the streetscape is what is showing in the architectural rendering. Is that correct? It looks like it's maybe the civil hasn't been updated to reflect your new ideas. Okay, so I'm.
Yeah,
All right.
Stephen Lee, that's what we're going with. And I don't know if, I know Warren is on the call here, but they haven't moved forward with showing this in their drawings yet. They will have this for planning and zoning, but this is the intention.
That sounds good. I completely understand the reasoning behind that as well. Just wanted to make sure this was the one that you're all talking about. So I would like to request that because all new projects downtown, especially in the CBD and especially at hotels, are doing this, but just to make sure that the street trees are in silva cells or some type of structured soil system. I don't think the current detail has that, and that may have already been changed. But the other is just really on the metal sculpture. I'm going to ask the architects to talk about that more. But in terms of kind of the pedestrian experience, I know that it sounds like the developer's intention is our absolute best at this point, but I think that for such an important corner on a streetscape and for such a big building, it's hard to kind of, get it excited about something that we can't see other than just a label that says metal sculpture on a building of this size. It would be great if maybe there was an artist conceptual concept that was able to let us know that there was a firm commitment for a really high quality piece that maybe integrated into the building more in some way. But that's just a thought. I know this is a large, complex project, so it would be great to be able to see that develop a bit further. And a question for staff, does something like that have to go before the Public Art Board just for approval? They really don't have input on it, do they?
I wouldn't think so. I'm not super familiar with the Public Art Commission, but I don't think, since it's not technically public art, that it would have to go before them.
Because I guess, part of this is being shown in the public right of way, that square that says metal sculpture, and the basic idea and concept are really exciting, but that's about it. There's not really much more to get excited about, but the potential's huge. So I'm going to toss it back to everybody else at this point.
And Stephen, let me respond to that, because I know that's a concern of yours and Brian's. It can't be any more than an idea right now, because we don't have an artist. We haven't commissioned an artist yet. We haven't had a conversation about what the owner would like to see on it there. It's just basically showing an opportunity. So what we could do is, haven't had a chance to talk to the owner about this, but why don't we just look at the approval without the sculpture right now? And if we need to come back either to staff or to design review at some point in the future to present the sculpture, once we have more information, then we'd be perfectly happy to do that. But I would not want to, and I think I hope would agree with us, so we don't want to hold up the project moving forward for something that we can't even define yet. And yes, it is a very important part of the building, and it is going to require more thought. But all we're doing here is just showing where the opportunity is.
Kim?
So actually, this is the part I wanted to talk about anyway. So I have a couple of questions, Peter, and just actually comments. So number one, I believe that although it's beautiful, the entrance is very crowded with the sculptures, the bike racks. When we think about mobility, plus you have egress and ingress of vehicles, it can get really clustered. It's a highly multimodal street in terms of people who are walking and using other modes of mobility. So I'm wondering, number one, is there an opportunity to move the bike racks like within the first several feet of where the cars are going, and maybe have some signage for folks who need to park their bike rack so we can clean up the sidewalk space? Number two, create 72, the word create to me suggests that there's a little bit more vibrancy. And as I mentioned last week, I'm concerned about this corridor specifically because so much of the existing buildings are using light as reflection in the large windows and that street activation in the windows, where this building, that first 2 floors, although it meets criteria, we're getting absorptive light with the brick. And so without the balance of additional reflective pieces, whether that's additional lighting or other ways of using reflection as a tool for visibility, it feels very, I think whatever creative piece you put there could be a hindrance, and rather than showcasing the building as, you know, what it is, and also a creative element of this side of the street. So I just wanted to, besides my comments, I wanted to actually ask, you know, is it possible to move the bike rack to make sure there's better mobility for pedestrians and those who are in wheelchairs? Is there a way to, you know, think about lighting on such a deeply light absorbing building? Like, what are your thoughts about that?
Well, the bike racks can always be moved to another location on the project. I think that's, but we need to comply with what the zoning requirements are. And yes, we can look at that in more detail. As far as the lighting of the building, the interior lighting of the first 2 levels will be on probably most of the day, and night. But also keep in mind that we have 4 fairly large wall sconces along the front of the building that shine down on the sidewalk. So in terms of pedestrians walking down the sidewalk at night, there'll be plenty of light to illuminate where they're going.
Yeah, so maybe these structures, even if you don't know what they are, consider that they can't absorb more light, and they need to be refracting light a little bit more, or something, because based on where they're currently placed as a placeholder, to me they look like impediments.
You're talking about the light fixtures?
No, she's talking about
Talking
the art.
about the structures, like the art,
Oh, the bike rack, okay.
the artwork, like structures.
Okay.
I agree with Kim on that. I feel like where that sculpture is shown, it makes it feel cramped at that corner to me. I think that's a good comment. Warren, and then Brian.
Yes, I was just going to add that, you know, we've got some street tree requirements that we have to do here. And obviously, Eric and Peter's model here has some. We've got to get 3 along this frontage, or else we've got to, you know, vary from code a bit. We also have a water connection and a sewer connection, and I'm geeking out on that a little bit, in that the water line, as you move further north, it is actually closer and on our side of the center line. And that's important because as we make that connection, and Broadway being what it is, we need to try to minimize the disturbance of travel lanes. And if we can keep that water line connection further to the north, if you go to sheet, yeah, you're getting really close now, you'll start to see that we can make a connection and hopefully not have to get over into the opposing travel lane. We still have to do that for the sewer, and that doesn't really change much. We also, you can see the gray area there that's kind of dashed. That starts to show you we have to chase storm all the way up to the intersection up at is that Woodfield or Woodfin Road, I think, because there is no storm drainage right now in this section of Broadway. So there's a lot going on in that area, but I did want to just bring up the street trees, the water, the sewer, and the storm that is all trying to sort of play chicken and get our access point and keep a, you know, a nice looking front. So a lot of things going on.
Thanks, Warren. Brian?
Peter, so I think you're using the artwork that's part of your public benefits, correct?
No.
No?
No, strictly not. The public benefits are the affordable housing for I believe it's 100 points. And then because part of this is going to be operated as extended stay facility, they'll be paying living wages. So the art piece is optional, and then, of course, the green roof is optional as well, but it's something that the owner would really like to put in the project.
Okay. I've got further comments about a few other things about the building composition and stuff, but I really think this artwork piece is important. I think the mobility piece that Kim identified is important. I still think that that using the artwork for this to make the corner special, I would prefer to see you do that in the building, or go ahead and show us what you're doing with it, then have that as the placeholder. I think I understand what you're trying to go for and stuff here. It's just it's a bit of a question mark right now. It's such a gateway piece to the building itself, that I wish I knew how it was actually being addressed. And I'll hold the balance of my comments for later on.
Well, again, we don't know what it's going to be yet. It's not.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, so it's intent to provide this to someone and say, you will wrap it around the corner the way it's shown, and there will be a piece out in the public right of way. Are those two things going to definitely happen, or is it going to be a waterfall thing that's coming over the edge of the parapet, coming down the building? Or is it, in other words, how many givens are you going to hand to the artist?
Brian, we don't know. I mean, it's an idea. It's not anything more than an idea right now. And what we'll do is we'll just completely remove it from the scope right now. And when we have more information about what it can be, we can come back to design review and have a more formal presentation of it. But it's not, I can't give you any more information about it until we talk to some artists and, go through a formal selection and, look at other artists' work. And we're just not ready to do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Kate?
I just have a quick question. Warren, the trees, were you saying that there's going to be 3 now in the front, and then will there be one in the location next to the proposed art piece right now?
So we do have some site plans in there that show 3. We show them all on the south side of the entrance, and the reason being is we have a water connection, water fire. We have storm coming out of the building. We also have sewer that's coming out of the building, and a master meter that all need to sort of occupy some space there. Traditionally, we don't like to have a water connection and then water line running, along the sidewalk. So that would be our, sort of recommendation. Otherwise, we're going to need to start to split utilities apart. Sewer's running to the north, so it makes the most sense to have it that direction to sort of sewer the building. Same thing for storm. It's got to run northward. I did hear Stephen Lee say a moment ago that each of these would be silver cells. So I guess we'll look into that. That'll extend some of the storm pipe further up or down Broadway. But yeah, those are the things we're looking at.
Yeah, because going back to Kim's comment in the rendering where you see the prism placeholder for the sculpture and then the tree that gets crowded, I would rather see like a broader branching tree. But it sounds like the trees won't even be there. So that's something
right there.
So you'll have a lot more space up on that end of the building for some sort of sculpture.
Potentially, I guess it depends on what staff thinks about the tree being closer to the entry point there, site visibility. Obviously, they'll have to limit up to have that 3 to 10 foot area that Ken and Chris Carnes want. But yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there just so we understood we were either giving 3 and we were putting them somewhere else, or we were asking for some sort of leeway on that.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else have any comments? Brian?
If we're ready to move to the building, can you pull up the main building elevation, I guess the west elevation on the updated, or that one's fine. So guys, I feel like this project has come a long way. I both like and want to like this project a good bit. I still feel like, so I like the proportions when I'm looking at the building in this frame. When I look at, except for one thing, I still think the tower, there's something off about the amount of brick between the head of those that top row of windows and the height of the parapet. It just feels like it just got extended. It needs bangs or something. And when I look at the building, though, if you could pull up the street view, Will, there's a view from entering town from, that's it. I think that's the one. Does that one scroll up? I'm trying to find mine. Yeah. So when I look at it, it looks like it's the way it just goes back and stops like that. It feels like it's just kind of tacked on, and there's no depth to it. And I either want to pull it down and I want to see the white piece as a single piece, or I want to see that piece go back or something. There's just something about the way that tower feels kind of like it's just barely attached to the building, that's disconcerting to me somehow. And I think that's part of how I'm reading some of this. So I feel like or what I'm seeing in this one's a good representation is that the building organization of materials makes more sense to me now than it has. Like I'm reading the base, I'm reading that second brick piece, I'm reading the tower, I'm reading this the metal panel, and I'm not overly fond of the way it kind of L shapes over the stucco piece, but it's still somewhat making some sense. It's just that tower is still not integrated. It's not its own. It's partly its own thing, but how it integrates with that white piece behind it is not quite there yet, at least to me. And then I still think this corner, if we're going to remove the artwork, I don't know. I know that there might be another building up against it at some point in time, and I know you don't want to. You've already got the primary and the secondary and the pedestrian and the vehicular. And this is going to be at best tertiary, but it feels like it's just not quite there yet, that corner. So that's the balance, I think, of kind of where I'm at right now. I think I'm fine with the materials. I like the organization. I like so much about this building, but I still feel like, especially that tower piece, we could, if that was a little more resolved, I think you'd be there.
I think this is the most important view of the project because this is the gateway to downtown. There's the Masonic Temple. This is the most important view in my mind, more than a flat on elevation or anything. This is the most important view. And I do think that corner, with or without the artwork, needs to be special. But and I do see what you're saying about the tower. Would it help if the parapet extended back a little more so it's a little less Wild West saloon kind of thing? I don't know.
Well, what we could do, there's two things we can do here. One is we can lower the tower element down so that it's a couple of feet below the top of the metal panel. That's option one. Option two is we can extend the element back over the top of the roof and have it read as a bigger, it will read as deeper from this vantage point.
Yeah.
So those are the option one and option two.
Peter, I sketched that, the option one, and I kind of liked it like when I was looking on a bird's eye view, because then that white piece felt like it was a thing, and then it was the tower, but then the tower became less important, and I had to pull it down pretty far to get that sense of it going across and for it to read it as its own thing. So it didn't make any sense. So I think I'm more in the option two, where the tower looks like it extends back into the building more, like it's cutting that the white piece actually
Yeah,
into instead of just tacked onto the front of it. Cardo,
Yeah,
I know you want to say something. I can see it.
I'm gonna let you finish.
I think I'm done. But I think that's right. You're right, Robin. This is you get this right and you got the building right.
Well, we can certainly add depth to the tower element. That's, from a construction standpoint, from an architectural standpoint, that's easily doable. And I agree with you, Brian, that you would have to bring the tower element down quite a bit for the strip of metal to read properly. Then you've lost the tower element as the main element. But regards to the corner, in our mind, how is it different than any other corner on any other building in downtown? And the reason I say that is because at some point in the future, there'll be a building in that site, and it's the same set of issues on any of the buildings that you see in this photograph right now. Right at the corner where the Minico dry cleaner building is, it's just a turned corner. The corner where the Masonic Lodge is, that's just a turned corner. There's no other articulation other than the banding, the base, the brick. Now, I could see, I mean, we would never present this, but I could see a real problem if if we designed this thing so the brick turned back 2 feet and then we picked up stucco all the way back. That would have looked like a piece of cardboard flopped up there. But this is going to be continuous brick all the way around, similarly to not generic, but a typical urban building. So Brian, I don't agree with you on that part of the corner, but I do agree with you on the tower element. And I think that if we pull the art piece off, I think we're showing at the corner now is it's a nice corner for the building.
But you might be right.
Well, what would you do?
Well, I'm thinking part of what I'm thinking is maybe it is obscured by the artwork, and maybe that I'm reacting to the trying to insert in my head what's going on behind it. Go ahead.
Brian, hold on 1 second. Can we share screen? Because I'm going to open up the Reva model and I'm going to erase the art piece.
Thank you, Peter. And I do deeply appreciate you guys working with us on stuff like this. I know I'm treading all over sensibilities when we do these.
I understand. We're just trying to get to the solution. All right, this is our current model. And I'm going to do a couple of things here to address the concerns. First, I'm going to take the tree. I'm going to move the tree over to here. Hold on a second. Hit control. Yeah, go ahead and just move the tree. Add the other tree, right?
You can hit H8 to hide it.
All right, there's the 3 trees, and then there, go ahead and hide the. And just hide that right. All right, so that's what we have right now. Now, the Kim's concerned about the bike racks, we can move those to another location, but that's given where the water and sewer taps need to be, which would be right in this area here. and this is where the 3 required street trees would be. There's the corner. And then the, up top here, I don't know if we can do this easily in the model, but we would take this element and stretch it back, I don't know, 6, 8 feet back onto the roof and have it so that you can't, that it reads as a true tower element puncturing the front wall.
Peter, I think part of the problem with the rendering that Will had on the screen is that metal panel in that rendering is reading as a light gray, plain, non-articulated thing. And that's not what it's going to be. And I think that in that rendering, I think that's why there's a problem with that rendering, and that's why we're saying it's important and it needs to be more special, is because you see this gray blob that's not articulated. And the metal panel you showed us was a dark brown color with some deep reveals, and there's going to be some articulation there. We just don't see it in that rendering. So I personally think that's the problem with that view when you look at that view, more so than the corner or anything else. But
yeah, and you know, I think with that corner, the way you've got it set up now, with the way the building recesses, and you've got some plants on that balcony above it, I'm actually pretty good with this, folks. I mean, the building is not the corner. You know, they didn't put the entrance on the corner. It's supposed to be understated because the main entrance is the main entrance. They've got the primary, secondary, tertiary set up. I'm okay with this. And then they get the, like you said, Robin, they get the material set up. I'm okay with that. And then that tower gets fixed maybe, or better if it gets extended back. I think that helps. Without wholesale changes. Now, I still have an issue, honestly, Peter. So I think extending it back is good. There's something going on with the lack of detail and articulation between the head of the window and that top of the parapet. And I don't know what to tell you to
How
do
about
there.
in this area here?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, that could be accomplished with adding some additional banding or a unique band that, you know, maybe, I don't know, maybe, I don't want to add another.
Some corbelling of some kind,
Corbelling,
some
yeah.
kind of detail, yes.
Yeah, some type of, something that could be done with brick masonry. Because
Agreed.
I think we all agree we don't want to add any more materials to this just because there's already, we don't need more. It just needs to be more articulated there. And we're perfectly fine doing that.
I think
Thank you.
it could be a precast plaque or something too, though. Lots of buildings downtown have in the top section, you know, a plaque with the name or the date or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's cheesy, but
the name and the year built, or there's an opportunity there, and we can certainly do that.
Ricardo?
About that top of that tower, that whole tower has what are relatively small windows with, you know, compared to the ones in the metal panel on that front facade. And maybe what happens is there's a change in the way that wall is treated, and then those windows get bigger, or something like that. So you can add more height to that point. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. You know, different things that you can do. You can add, you know, different bands or articulation on the brick above, something like that. But I agree. I mean, that's always had, as Brian says, a big forehead, which it doesn't need to have. And I also share the concern about the tower looking tacked on. I think extending it back will help. looking at that view from the street, coming, looking south, it really just, I mean, when I first saw that, I was like, that thing looks like it's gonna fall on the street. And of course it's not, but that's what it looks like, which is, this is why we want to look at things from different angles. Um, I I'll preface my comments by saying that I agree this building has come a long way. It it hopefully you guys feel the same way. I still have some problems that are, I think, are now more evident now that you guys have clarified how the materials are being used. There's still, I agree with Brian. There's something very weird about that L shape, and I would um, I would suggest, instead of this sort of, you've got that the ephes going around under that metal panel like that. I might change the ephes to do something different. There's something, very compelling about the way that, the building has, the massing has been scooped out in some places. Maybe in order to clarify that, that ephes could happen vertically. So everything above the brick is essentially metal panel. You've got almost like 1, 2, 3, 4 datums into the depth of the mass. You have the part below with the banding. You've got the part above, brick, without the banding, and then you have metal panel, which, even though it's on the same plane as that brick without the banding, it still reads as a different thing because it's set back on the front. So as a volume, as a mass, it can read differently, even though that side is on the same plane. But then where everything is scooped out anywhere from that wall datum, especially, if you're looking at the southeast, no, sorry, the northwest, yeah, which is the side that we'd be, this view, which is the side that we'd be looking at. That void there in the middle, and then you have a similar void towards the back at the top. If that wall was that different material, and then everything that's out on the same datum remains the same material, you still have the same amount of materials, but I think you have a much more successful articulation, because you're expressing the way that, or not expressing, but highlighting the way that the mass has been sculpted, that the voids and solids and voids on the mass have been sculpted. The thin volume in that view, and I think it's on the other view as well, that part has always bothered me. There's something, I think there's something unresolved about that, and I think that difference in materials for something like that can help with that, because then you could treat everything, or most of what's in there, with one material, and say, okay, the universe that exists within the void that we sculpted out of this mass is something different than the rest of the building. And then on the metal panel, when we talked about this during the downtown commission, we talked about whether it's corrugated or smooth or what. First of all, I mean, right now this has what looks like a 2x4 pattern that relates to nothing. And obviously that's a problem. Hopefully that will get fixed. I don't know that a 2x4 pattern is what you want, because that's not the module you have. But I would also suggest to playing with that, especially if you have that that reveal system that you can play with. You're gonna have, this panel is gonna have depth to it. It's not just interlocking sequentially installed panel. So there's going to be depth to these reveals, and I think playing with the module of those joints is going to help in many ways. Primarily, to my eye, the metal panel, it just seems like a different building. You know, there's no relationship between the metal panel building and the brick building, at least not one that's expressed very clearly. And if you playing around with those joints and modulating those joints and allowing those joints to inform whatever's happening on the brick, back and forth, having a dialogue, I think that's going to tie these things together really well. And I think I'll
Christina?
just
Oh, sorry.
leave it at that.
Okay.
Christina?
Yeah, I just also want to say that I agree that the building has come a long way. Can we look at sheet DRC 025? I think it's unfortunate that we're seeing these images this late after having so many meetings, because I think it's really telling to see this building in context.
Which sheet again, Christina?
025.
Is that elevation?
No, it's a rendering.
Okay. Let's see.
But I think I've really, this image is really helpful. The Center for Craft is such an elegant building with the glass and the brick detailing. And I think that this building is attempting to mimic that, but it's so literal. And it's unfortunately just not as elegant. And I'm wondering if maybe the high contrast banding is too literal of a mirror image, if maybe toning that down could help. The Center for Craft was, I think it's an older, I think it's a 1912 building, and this design in general gives off like this Art Deco, like ziggurat vibe, but it's mimicking this building that has nothing to do with Art Deco. So I find that kind of strange. And then if you can go to the south, I also am curious about where you're transitioning for the thin brick, because although we hope it looks the same, the thin brick often does not look the same. And so I'm curious where you're going to make that break and how you're going to keep it in the same plane. And then just the last comment about the metal, I agree with what Ricardo was saying. And to me, it just has this really institutional feel that doesn't match the rest of the building.
Well, the transition from the full thickness brick to the thin brick will be at the second floor line where we have a band. So that would allow it to step back. We will be choosing a brick manufacturer that can make both the full-size brick and the thin brick from the same clay, so the color will be the same. And the outside corners and the inside corners in the thin brick will all read as full depth brick, so you won't have it won't look like a piece of cardboard, with an odd exposed corner. In terms of the materials, we're trying to do, we're pulled in multiple ways here because the guidelines are very ambiguous in terms of base, middle cap, or similar. Palette of materials that are typical in downtown, proportions, things that aren't, they leave room for interpretation. And this is our interpretation of what a building ought to be on this site. And we've been asked by this group to use brick that's been received very positively in our past meetings, and that we feel it's the appropriate material to have on this site, and that the articulation with the banding makes the building richer than it would be if it were just one brick color. So we feel very strongly about that. As far as the metal panels, we want to change the materials so that the building read as part of it being a new building on this site, but at the same time having brick masonry, which is a major material on this street, at a height that was compatible and integral with the existing streetscape. So there's logic and rationale behind that. Ricardo, in terms of your comment about the towers and where the material changes and things like that, I think I understand what you're saying, but I want to be clear about the articulation on the panel. We at this point in the design, the decision is it's going to be a flat panel. It's going to have some type of alignment. It needs to align with the opening so that it makes sense architecturally and as an image. And that's the direction we're going. The direction we're not going in is it's not going to be corrugated metal. So the only thing we can really present at this time is that this is the type of metal we're going to use, and this generally is what the detailing will be in terms of the grid. It will be a horizontal grid, not a vertical grid. So I think, all these questions that have come up are things that would be typically addressed during probably design development phase of the project. At this point in the design review, we want to make sure, and I think we've met all the requirements for step back, height limitation, materiality, window openings, activation at the street, the sidewalk, the things that are typically reviewed in design review at this stage of the process of the design of the building. Knowing, we know, our client knows, you all know that there will be more design work to come as this project moves through schematic design, then design development on through the standard design process.
Kim?
Hey, Peter. Yeah, I think for me, when I'm listening to the other committee members, what I'm really seeing for myself and hearing from them is this is a very, many streets in the downtown corridor, they have their own architectural kind of prominence. And this particular part of Broadway, there's a nod, to the existing architecture that's been there for a century, while also showing the modernity of this building. And right now, and like you mentioned, we're probably not in that development phase, but maybe taking a nod from the team here is, yeah, it meets the criteria, and aesthetically it's not there yet for many reasons, because some of the details aren't present to be able to say, oh, that's a nod, but it's reinterpreted, or, oh, and again, with all that loss of street level activation of that glass that you see so prevalent down both sides of the street, it really changes the look and feel. This building stands out, tremendously to me, because it's so different from having all that really beautiful glass work at the street level. Of course, you can't help that with where the parking needs to go, but it means that the design challenge for the team is to really respond, at future stages so that it doesn't look like it doesn't belong. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments, questions, Ricardo?
Yeah, Peter, just a response on your comment. I appreciate what you're saying, but given how many times we've looked at this building, I personally expected it to be a little bit more resolved. If this was the first time we were looking at it, if this was the second time, that's one thing, but we looked at it several times, and we've also responded. You know, we looked at it here, and we also gave you comments during downtown commission. So it's not just here.
Brian.
A quick, I'm a little puzzled at that process here. So when a project wants to get use by right, or however we term it, to come through this versus going to council, Peter's talking about, okay, yeah, you know, this is what it is, but then it might change. You know, we might, during the design process, we might switch materials, we might, you know, do this, we might do that, we might do the other. So I'm just curious about process. When does it trigger? Well, that's a material change on what they approved, and now it has to come back through. Because I'm actually a little confused now. I thought, you know, when we approve this, whatever we approve, that's what it pretty much is. And he's talking, you know, unless I misunderstood, it's like, well, you know, yeah, of course we might change materials during the design process. And I'm going, wait, what? Can somebody?
No, Brian, we're not, these are the materials we're using. We're not gonna all of a sudden change to, you know, a completely different color brick or a different metal. This is what these are the materials the client would like to use on the project. So
Okay.
that's consistent. The only thing that may change in the brick is something that we would have, none of us would have any control over, and that's supply chain. So if we can't get a brick that's, as you know, exactly
Sure.
like that, it may be slightly different color.
Yeah.
Same with the metal panels and the glass. So
So
this
then
is-
I assume then the staff would review that and go, well, that's not a material change from what they approved. It's a slightly different shade, but they still have two shades of brick. Maybe it's not thin, it's thin brick now and versus that, but we weren't reviewing wall sections. We were reviewing, you know, elevations and renderings. And so it wouldn't be a material change and they would move forward. Is that Will, am I
Yeah,
tracking?
that tracks with how I understand it as well. It would,
Okay.
have
Okay.
to be substantially in conformance with whatever gets approved, and any major deviations to the design would have to come back around, I'm sure.
Thank you. I apologize.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments? I will say that I agree with Christina about that this is a little too close to the arts and crafts. I would suggest toning the color of that lighter band down, but that's I had that same response when I saw this image. Anybody else have anything?
I like the different, I like the very, the other view coming from the north into town, whichever one that is, Broadway South contextual. Yeah. See, the where the vintage pop-up is, I'm a fan of that. You know, it's the same brick and they're just popping in and out in the plane. Honestly, I think that would be pretty fitting for something like this. But that's me. And I was enjoying Ricardo talking about, he was almost getting deconstructivist on me, where he's talking about, you know, you got a plane, and then when you break that plane and push back, it changes materials, like as an organizing principle for when you change. Because I still don't know why, like it's the metal panel here and metal panel above, but then that piece underneath it is stucco. I can't quite, I see that there's like a volumetric, but there's nothing above. Like, why didn't the stucco go up? I don't know. Yeah, I understand that we're getting, I'm deep into some of the weeds on this stuff, but I would be willing to, like, I think if they make that change on the tower, I think if they pull the artwork off, fix the trees, I think, and then I don't know if anybody else has like strong feelings on the brick banding and per Christina and Robin's things. And I also wanted to mention, Peter, I thought I heard you say that the green roof was a potential. Is that in or out?
It's in.
It's in. Okay.
Yeah, it's in.
Okay. Very good.
It's in.
Thank you. What other items or additions? Are we ready to entertain a motion on this? I'm sorry, Robin.
Should take public comment
Go for it,
before
go
anyone
for it.
Oh
offers
yeah,
a
yeah,
motion.
that's right. We would have to take public comment, but I don't. Are we ready for that, or do we need to see Ricardo, Christina? Would you want to see something revised before you could vote yes?
I would.
Yeah, I agree. I think if the materials are going to change, if this isn't the final material choice and the color of materials and the reveals in the metal panel, I think that's something we want to see.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Brian. I think they're almost there. I mean, they're almost there, but I don't think they are, and I'm not ready to just throw out some conditions on it and hope for the best. Not at least not on this site.
Just a point also, I think this is part of the challenge of this process. And this is kind of the first time I think we've gotten to a project of this scale and complexity where we literally have to come down to a vote. And if this had gone before city council, I mean, we're all on design teams and we know how this works, or we've been in the design business, and it's tough. It's tough going through TRC and you basically have construction documents in hand. And if this had gone before city council would have expected to have seen, I would assume, expected to have seen visual images of exactly what the building was going to look like. And it only seems like that's the only way we can give a final approval on this is if we can see these adjustments studied and looked at and thought through. They have a chance to think through this. I regret that it takes another month before our next meeting. And I don't know if the architects have any thought on that or not, but 4 weeks can be a long time, especially when it's a project that's gone through so much review. So I don't know if we have options for mid-month review, but
Are they allowed to go ahead and continue the submittal process for like TRC and things like that? Or are we the bottleneck?
This is the bottleneck. They're penciled in for July Planning and Zoning Commission, but if they did not receive a favorable recommendation at this meeting today, then we probably push them off until the August Planning and Zoning. And
okay, so how to make a submittal for P&Z, when would we have to approve it? And is there an option for a mid-month meeting with our team?
Mid-month is tough because I have to check the advertising deadlines. There's we have to post the site and newspaper and all that stuff.
Okay.
So
end of month. So like for a P&Z submittal, could they submit? Because we technically, do we fall before or after P&Z on a monthly basis? We're right after.
Kind of in between. So like it's the next DRC meeting is after the upcoming planning and zoning. So planning and zoning is on July 6th, and then DRC is on July 21st. So if they got continued, they would presumably go to the July 21st DRC meeting, and then if they were approved at that meeting, they could then go to the August 3rd planning and zoning. Yeah, it's just the way the schedule falls.
Robin, just as a point of clarification on all this, I understand perfectly well the concerns that every one of you has was brought forth in this presentation. And it's not anything that seems to be overly unreasonable. However, what I'm concerned about is, and please don't take this the wrong way at all, but to ask us to show detailing in a metal panel, that would be something that we would talk to our client about. But in a public review process where that type of detail is not asked for, nor anything even closely resembling that level of detail, is a huge overreach. And I think as a design committee, and in my past was chair of the same downtown commission dealing with design review, you have to be very careful about overreach. And I think that it's extremely unfair to any applicant to be asking for additional information on aspects of the project that aren't even part of what you are entitled or asked to review as this committee. So whatever y'all, what we will do, we will change the tower element because I think that's a very reasonable request. We'll remove the art piece for now, and once we have that commission, we'll bring that back. At some point, we will show the full articulation of the metal panel because we need to do that anyway. I like the idea of the metal panel element going up and over. I personally, as an architect, as an artist, and as a designer, I like that. And I respectfully disagree with Ricardo. I know he has valid reasons why he doesn't like that and why Brian doesn't like that, but this is stepping into the realm of art as opposed to life safety and zoning. So we'd like to keep that. We will certainly study it more to make sure that the detailing is right. And in fact, if you want to look at the detailing when we get into early design development and just have a meeting where we bring this as a courtesy to you, we will certainly be glad to do that. But in terms of the main element about, yes, we're committing to using real brick, yes, we'll commit to flat panel, yes, we'll commit to articulating the joints. We will rework the tower elements so that it extends past the roof and reads as a true tower. And we'll look at, but not make a commitment to studying the banding at the street level to maybe simplify that in a way. We'll add the trees in as requested. We'll move the bike racks. We'll look at the lighting to make sure that the lighting works. But we would really like to have an approval today with those conditions so that we can move forward.
Christina?
I just wanted to clarify, I like the use of the brick and the banding. My comment was that because the banding is so high contrast, it looks like a literal copy mirror image of, or attempt at mirroring of the craft Center for Craft.
Okay.
So I just wanted to clarify that it's not an issue with use of brick detail or brick in general or any. It's really just the high contrast that makes it such a literal mirroring of the building across.
Well, Christine, if you in the committee want to make a condition that we tone down the contrast between the two brick colors, we're certainly willing to do that.
And can you go back to the image you were at before? I was noticing on the Masonic temple, that they have some banding that's in line with the second story banding that you have, but below there's some brick detailing, but it's monochrome. Do you see?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and that's kind of what I'm saying, that you can have some nice detailing, but it doesn't need to literally mirror the Center for Craft. I think it's a bit, I don't want to say offensive because that's kind of extreme, but it's just too literal. in my opinion.
That's fair enough. We can reconfigure that. I mean, that's not an issue with us. And that would go back to Brian's comment about the old Minico building where it was just one brick but articulated. I think it's important to have a banding element at the second floor because that ties in with rolling coffee. And I think we need to have a banding element at the fourth floor because that's the top of
Agreed.
the true podium. And then everything else can be simplified just with the same color brick.
I agree. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, I am gonna say it's 2:00. Ricardo?
I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't asking for detailing on the metal panel. I just want to know what the metal panel pattern is doing. I mean, in my mind, if you pick a material, it's because there's something that you're trying to accomplish with it, and I don't see that here. Detailing at like CD level, nothing of the sort. Not even necessarily having picked what your manufacturer is going to be. I just want to know what the metal panel is doing, you know, pattern wise and general flavor of, you know, pattern and joints and language on the building.
Okay.
Brian?
I was looking at Peter's north elevation again because he was talking about he really likes the kind of the L-shaped piece. You can see it right there just fine. Well, that's fine. Either way. It's sheet DRC 14 in the updated elevations. I don't know what page that is. Sorry. Yeah, that one. So Peter, I was just thinking, you know, part of what I'm reading is that maybe it would be just as simple, and it would I would read it differently if you change the railing material on the balconies when you have different materials. You see what I mean? Like, so if you had because you've already got kind of, it's already starting to look like that to me. And like, maybe that would start to make more sense because then I wouldn't be reading those as the volumes going up, you know, for the balconies, but I would begin to read those differently if you start to, I've got this railing for this type of material and this railing when it's in the stucco and this kind of railing when it's in the brick. And then it really begins to read as the different pieces in there. The small thing, I just wanted to throw that out. So folks, we've got Christina and Ricardo already said they're not really on board with it. Kate can't vote because she's off the island. And the conditions right now is that they're going to investigate extending the mass of the tower so that it reads as going further back into the building. They were going to revise the detailing between the head of the top window and the parapet on the tower. They were going to remove the artwork, and they were going to do something to the street trees. Are those the conditions if we were to vote on something? Do I have that correct?
I think so. We need to check on public comment before we do any voting, though. Will, is there anybody in the queue?
Chair, we do not have any callers.
Okay.
If we can add the conditions for the banding and the metal panel, I think I would be on board. I'll let Ricardo.
So revise the banding, not the story banding, but the what do they call it on here?
The intermediate. It's the banding between the first and the second floor. We'll delete that and change. We'll still have some type of rustication, but it'll be in the same color brick. We'll keep the banding at the second floor because that's the plinth that matches the rolling coffee house. We'll delete the banding at the fourth floor level, keep the banding at the fifth floor level because that ties in with the Masonic Lodge. And we'll anywhere where there's banding now that's changing back to the main brick color, it'll have some type of three-dimensional articulation to it.
Okay. And then Christina, what was the metal panel piece that?
I'll let Ricardo comment on that, but I just agree with knowing what the grid is doing, what its relationship is with the rest of the facade, including the windows, what the intention is there.
Well, Christina, the way the grid will work is, if you look at this elevation, anywhere where there's a horizontal window mullion, that's where we will have a horizontal band. So you'll see the projection of the window mullion and the reveal of the metal panel will align with that. So and I apologize, we couldn't get that to, I mean, that takes a lot of, obviously, study to get that to work, but that's the intention, that you'd see a horizontal band that would align with the horizontal window mullions all the way around. And then the vertical elements, or the vertical reveals, would align with the vertical mullions.
Okay.
Will, quick question. You had on one of the, you said it's not aligned or only partially aligned with the design guidelines because the metal panels were not authentic materials. Now I know the synthetic ephes is generally not considered authentic, but metal panels in the UDO are not authentic.
I think I was thinking more about the
stucco. Okay.
Yeah,
I just was clarifying that because I've got projects and I want to make sure, because metal panels are pretty authentic. Okay. All right. Checking. All right. So conditions, let me go back over them. The tower, removing the art, the intermediate story banding, rustication, and the clarification of the metal panel detail. And I'm not trying to buy votes here or anything. Christina and Cardo, feel free to vote however you need to. I'm just going to try to make up a set of conditions as best I can understand it. We'll make the motion and then let the votes fall. Sound fair?
Ryan, can you clarify any potential condition about the forehead between the?
Yeah. I've got that as listed as part of the tower.
As clear as clear.
I'm not going to make it the forehead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
Or and just be as specific about like, I just want to make sure these conditions can be actionable by staff, and it's not like improve the design of, and then that doesn't help.
No, I tell you, it would be helpful, Will, if you go back to the streetscape view of either the Center for the Art or the building with the pop-up. Yeah, that one's fine. So what I'm kind of looking for is a similar detail where they've got that corbelline above the sash windows on that building on the right. They have a similar detail if you go to the other view, looking up where you can catch the craft building above the window for that one, not that one. Which one is it? Yeah, so if you look above the banding, like I'm pointing at my screen like you can see, in that gable, yeah, there's that kind of recessed piece. Something like that is what I'm thinking would define. You see this all over downtown. It's a very common way of detailing. You have recessed or soldiers or something along those lines, articulated brick details between the top of the window and the parapet. And I'm gonna shut up because Stephen Lee wants to talk.
Just a quick talk, and I know what time it is. I'm going to base my vote and opinion on this on the fact that this is an architecture firm, an architect that has been in our position, has been president of the Downtown Commission, has been on the Design Review Committee, although it was another form, but has had a number of successful projects. And I think that those are outstanding reasons to consider these conditions. But just as a point of note, if this were a group that none of us had ever dealt with, and there was a sense of not knowing whether we could trust this to move through like we see it, I think I would have some serious concerns, but I'm going to vote in favor of placing the conditions and approving because we're dealing with a known element. Thanks.
All right, I'm ready to make a motion. I move to recommend approval of the Create 72 Broadway project as presented, based on site plans, elevations, and other materials submitted in discussions heard during this review and other reviews. And I find that the project meets the intent of the downtown design guidelines, subject to the following conditions. One, that the applicant revise the main tower element to extend further back onto the roof to bring the appearance that it is a three-dimensional piece. Two, that the tower element be brick detailing between the top window head and the parapet be revised to show soldier course or recesses appropriate to the design of the building and bring appropriate detail to that portion of the tower. Three, that the intermediate story banding of different colors along the top, I think it's top or the bottom, excuse me, bottom 2 stories of the building be revised to be a single color with differences in the plane of the brick, similar to surrounding buildings. That and then I don't know what number I'm on now. Sorry, Will. I think I'm on 4.
Yeah.
That the metal the metal panel detailing be clearly revised to coincide with the height of the windows and be congruous with the window and fenestration design. 5, that the street trees be moved concurrent with the items as we have discussed. Sorry, I can't remember exactly which side of the entrance we put them on. 6, that the bike racks be removed out of the as an obstruction to the public way. And 7, that the proposed artwork piece be removed as a placeholder at this point in time. Did I catch everything?
I think so.
It's 7 conditions. It should be. Okay. So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, then I'm going to do a roll call vote. Kate is recused. Christina.
Aye.
Kim.
Aye.
Stephen Lee.
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Ricardo.
No.
And me. Aye. It's approved with conditions. And we have another item on our agenda, but it has been continued. So
Okay. Well, very good. Thank you very much.
thank you. So if we don't have any future discussion topics, I think that
I've got one
Got one?
item.
Okay.
Condolences and congratulations to Will on his new position.
Thanks, Brian. I like that.
Condolences first.
I got some
Yes.
big shoes to fill, so hopefully, maybe if I'm here for as long as Shannon was, I'll eventually get there. So.
That's right.
Okay, well, do we have any public comment?
Chair, we do not have any callers.
Okay, thank you. Well, if everyone is okay with that, then the meeting is adjourned.
So moved.
Thank you.
Incredible work, everyone. Thank you.